have no
have it.
choice. I
All
have
right,
no
you guys
choice.
are on YouTube. Susan Michelle, this mic is all yours.
Hi, this is Susan Michel. I am here in Western Massachusetts. It is so great to be here as always. I am the author of Surrender to Joy, From Suicide to Serenity. I teach the transformational truth of A Course in Miracles, which we are all here to study, to learn, to embody the knowledge of. And my good friend and Course in Miracles soul sister is here to talk with me today. We haven't spoken together in a couple of months, and you look so beautiful, Zulma, and you're radiating joy. How are you?
I am well and wonderful. I've just left a in-person Course in Miracles study group and flying home to be here with you. I'm loving it.
Oh, that's so exciting. It's been years since I have done an in-person Course in Miracles study group, and that just sounds phenomenal because Zoom is great, but for me, in person is even better.
Yes.
It really is. So that's you just put a thought in my head. I'm going to try to find one in my area. That's a great idea, Zoma. So I will start with the introduction of my book, as I usually do. And what I recite in my introduction is my passion is God. God is love and joy and beauty. He is all that is good in the world. Everything else is our own miscreation. When we are filled with joy, like Zoma is, we are connected to God. When we are not joyful, we have lost our connection to all that is real. This is my message. It can be clarified with three simple words: surrender to joy. There is nothing to find. All we need to do is surrender. There is nothing to find in the world because there is no world. We are always creating our external experiences through our internal projections. So, if we choose to see the peace, love, joy, and happiness in the world, we are connected to our true self. And if there are fear-based images that we are perceiving, we are seeing through dark glasses. We are seeing through the ego's thought system, and it's up to us to differentiate between the two. A Course in Miracles tells us that our true nature is love. So the only thing that's real is the love. Um, it cannot teach us the meaning of love because that is just who we are. The only thing the Course in Miracles can do is point out the blocks to love. So when the blocks to love arise, we can identify them. For me, it's about owning them, owning the pain, and then releasing them. Um, are you at a place that you're ready to talk, Zoma, or do you need a few more minutes?
Oh, I'm in agreement with everything. I'm taking my coat off.
Oh,
Absolutely, absolutely in agreement. When I think that I'm separate, when I perceive myself as being separate from anything, from anyone, then I'm separating myself. I believe I'm separating myself from life. I'm separating myself from God. And how in the world can I have peace when I perceive myself as being all alone in this world? Yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's definitely, I mean, for me, um, I was listening to a new book on Audible by a Course in Miracles teacher, Gabrielle Bernstein. It's called Self Help, and she's an avid Course in Miracles teacher student. I think why I'm so drawn to her teachings lately is she's very clear about the importance of showing compassion for our wounded inner child. And that has just been such an important learning lesson for me in this lifetime. Because if you don't show compassion for the wounds in your unconscious mind, and you end up doing what many Course in Miracles students call spiritual bypassing, they're still kind of lurking in your unconscious, and they still kind of guide your life. So for me, it's all about a purge. That's what I strive to do, to just bring the darkness whenever I'm triggered, try to bring that trigger to the light, give it to the Holy Spirit so I can release it. I mean, there's that paragraph in A Course in Miracles that oh, well, this is a different paragraph, actually. There's one specific paragraph about darkness that I love to read, but I actually opened to another paragraph, which is really interesting also, that I was just speaking about. This is in the preface. What Jesus writes in the preface is, the world we see merely reflects our own internal frame of reference, the dominant ideas, wishes, and emotions in our minds. Projection makes perception. We look inside first, decide the kind of world we want to see, and then project that world outside, making it the truth as we see it. We make it true by our interpretations of what it is we are seeing. If we are using perception to justify our own mistakes, our anger, our impulses to attack, our lack of love in whatever form it may take, we will see a world of evil, destruction, malice, envy, and despair. All this we must learn to forgive, not because we are being good and charitable, but because what we are seeing is not true. We have distorted the world by our twisted defenses and are therefore seeing what is not there. As we learn to recognize our perceptual errors, we also learn to look past them or forgive. At the same time, we are forgiving ourselves, looking past our distorted self-concepts to the self that God created in us and as us. So that is very similar to what I just was talking about. So we are always seeing our own projection in our external world. And if we are seeing something that triggers a fear-based emotion, we need to choose to forgive it, not because we want to earn brownie points and get into heaven, not because we feel like we have to prove our worth to God, but because what we are seeing is not true. And as we forgive our brother, since God has but one son, and we are literally seeing a reflection of us, if something is triggering us in the outside world, it's showing me something inside of me that I'm still holding on to. So as I forgive my brother, I'm releasing this pain point and I'm forgiving myself. Right, Zulma?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I had a situation today. I at the study group, someone brought up something, and I said, no, wait, stop. And it turned into something because that individual, felt like I was silencing her. And after I did my playback, I realized that I was, but it wasn't her that I had to forgive. It was once I looked at it, because then I wanted to beat myself up. And then you're making a good point. The key is forgiveness, not to judge, not to judge anything out there because it's coming from in here. And then once I realize it's coming from in here, not to judge that either, but to be gentle with myself, to be willing to let that go, to forgive myself, because I too am God's child. I too am that. So it's not just them out there, and there is really no out there because it's all coming from in here. But but the thoughts that I have about myself and my own mistakes, and to not consider myself as, I've sinned, and and all this fault and blame, but to look at it and realize that I too am human, and the Course teaches that mistakes are for correction and nothing more. So yeah, absolutely, you're right on point.
Because judgment is of the ego, whether we're judging our brother or judging ourselves, if we are judging, we are not coming from Christ consciousness. We are not coming from love. So A Course in Miracles talks about that very often. The reason that we should not judge our brother is because if we judge our brother, since the mind is all encompassing, we cannot refrain from judging ourselves. If we laugh at our brother, we can't refrain from laughing at ourselves. When we love our brother, we are basically loving ourselves. That's why it feels so good to love our brother, because as we extend God's love to our brother, we realize, we remember how much love there is within ourselves to extend. And it's just so amazing how that works. And today's lesson is very, very beautiful. Today is January 27th. And today's lesson states, above all else, I want to see. So what do we want to see? We want to see the truth. We want to see the beauty. We want to see the real. And we can't see when we're looking at external. True sight goes beyond the external. True sight, I mean, when I'm looking at my brother and I'm seeing their body, I'm actually not really seeing them at all. When I can look past the external and see the beauty, the love that is within them, that's what the goal of A Course in Miracles is. That's what Jesus Christ was able to do 2,000 years ago when he was on this earthly plane. He could see through the external. He could see through the body of his brother to the just incredible, through the body to the incredible beauty that the brother had on the inside, his brothers had on the inside. And that's how he was able to heal the sick, because he didn't see the sickness, he didn't see the illness, he just saw the truth, and the truth was love. And by him being so clear as to what was true about them, that's what enabled them to connect to that truth within themselves. So when we're really clear about what's true in our brother, and we really see the love in our brother, they pick that up, and it uplifts them, because everything is an energetic frequency. So I mean, a miracle, it's a win-win. We uplift our brother, we also uplift ourselves. And A Course in Miracles says very clearly that we don't have to be ready to perform miracles, but we just need to be willing to give that moment to Christ, so Christ can extend the miracle through us. That's how we become a conduit. We extend the moment to Christ so he can use us to extend love to our brother. And it's a very uplifting experience. Not only does it better our brother, does it support our brother, does it uplift our brother, it uplifts us. Right, Zulma?
Yes, I'm actually going to flip that, because the upliftment starts here, because everything I see is coming from me, which is, with the lesson, it's coming from me. When I uplift myself, then I can uplift you. Because if I just rolled in mud and then came and gave you a hug, now I've put mud on you. So I have to get the mud off me, so that, freshly showered and smelling all good, so that when I come and hug you, now you smell good too. That sort of thing. So it really, because all attack is self-attack, all love is self-love, and that Christ consciousness is being willing to see things, to look beyond the body, to always look beyond the body, to recognize that what you are is what I am, that what I am is what you are. And as long as I'm stuck, because it all begins with me. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. So it starts with me looking out, because this out that I'm doing, this consciousness, this awareness out there, is actually still coming from in here. Like, okay, I have these glasses. All of a sudden, things are a little bit bigger. Well, actually, they're a little bit, need to be cleaned. But, it all depends on how I'm seeing it. Nothing out there changed, but how I'm seeing it is what's changing. So it's not, for me, it's not, uplifting my brother to uplift myself, but recognizing that it's in uplifting myself that I can uplift my brother, getting the mud off me first.
That's a great analogy when you use the glasses, because it's so true. Nothing in the world changes. The world is the same, but how we're looking at the world changes. There's this billboard on the side of the road that you made me think of. It says, "Be the change you want to see in the world," because we can't change other people. I mean, situations can change externally, but the change of the situation is not what's going to bring peace to our minds, because no matter where we go with ourselves. It's about seeing the world from a more loving place. And I mean, for me, when I get up in the morning, I listen to my Course in Miracles lesson on YouTube, and I understand it's just really important to discipline my mind, to discipline my thoughts. Jesus tells us in A Course in Miracles that the course is all about mind training. And then I will tell you, this morning, I had the most amazing meditation. I really did. I did 30 minutes. I started with lesson 27, above all else I want to see. I kept repeating that subject line to myself. And I really, really felt connected. I really did. And I will say, getting into the world, though, it's always gets challenging to keep that connection, because you see one person who brings a positive vibration, and then I see someone else that there's a not so positive vibration. And it's challenging. It's challenging to keep that high state of connection going throughout the day. um Course in Miracles tells us that whenever we are fearful, to just be still and know that I am God. We need to be still, be fully present in the moment, and know that God loves us so much, to just completely depend upon God who created us is really elevates our energy. I know that my partner on Pal Talk here, Myrna, she always tells this story of, I guess she has a little fear of driving sometimes. So whenever she goes driving, she just gives the wheel over to Jesus and says, "Jesus, will you drive for me?" And Jesus says, "Yes, Myrna, of course I will. But I want you to stay alert. It's very important for you to stay alert." And I thought of her when I was driving a distance on, I think it was on Saturday. I just gave the drive over to Jesus. It was a job that I was working that I had never worked before, and there was a lot of different instructions in terms of the sign-in procedures, and I really didn't know what I was doing. And I said, "You know what? I'm not going to stress out, or I'm going to do my best not to stress out. I'm just going to give it over to Jesus, to God, to Christ consciousness, and let him direct me." And you know what? The whole thing worked out perfectly. It really did. What actually happened on this job, now that I'm thinking back about it, there was another representative that I was working with, and she actually helped me with a lot of the technical knowledge that I needed to know. So she could have been the angel that was sent to me. I mean, the whole day went pretty smoothly, but I think it's very important to remember that when we stress, that is ego. That's ego. That's the egoic thought system. That's not God. because God is always calm. God is confident. God is compassionate. God is loving. So again, when I am calm, even in the face of turbulence, that is when I am really coming from my higher self, right, Zulma?
Yes. And unfortunately, that's not always the case for me. And unfortunately, it's funny as you're using driving as an example, because on the 17th, Friday, a couple weeks ago, I was driving along. I had decided I didn't want to go to work that day, but I went anyway. I went in late, and I decided to look to the right when I was supposed to be driving straight, and I drove straight into the back of a car. And
Ooh,
and totaled mine. Uh,
ooh.
and it and after I got past the, seeing the in my dreams that night, seeing the airbag deploy and all that kind of stuff, and all that, and all that went with that. The very next day, I had to go get a rental car, and it's a good thing because, as Lynn mentioned earlier, and the whole thing about the driving I was having. And you talk about Myrna with the car. I had that moment where I really didn't want to, and I thought, you know what? They're giving me a car for a week. I have to do this. The life has to go on. I can't stop. And one thing after another, the person who helped me with the insurance part of it, her name was Breezy, so her name was Breeze, and the woman who I got the rental car from Enterprise, her name was Grace. So I kept saying that everything was happening to me with breeze and grace, with breeze and grace, and I kept holding on to that. And I had decided I didn't want. I had already set the intention, as the course teaches us, making the decision how I wanted things to go. I had already decided I wanted to have a car with, in the week. I wanted, because they were giving me a rental car for a week, and I'd set this intention and set this intention. And there were moments when I'm like, oh man, oh, this car, oh, this price, oh, it's not what, oh, everything, everything worked out exactly the way it was. You talk about with ease and grace, with breeze and grace. The car I have has more than the other one had. It has less mileage than the other one had. I love the car. I'm enjoying the car, but there are moments when I forget, and I love review 1 after workbook lesson 50, right? The first review, which talks about that the peace is always where we are, that it's not when things are all sweet and wonderful that we're supposed to remember this. It's when things seem turbulent. That's the time to remember, because the things that seem turbulent are the temporary things. Those are the things, the situations, the experiences, those things come and those things go. But God is constant. God is constant. God is constant. And that's the time for me to remember that I am in God, that I am in God. The Course teaches that we are in God. That we live in God, that we move in God. We have our being in God. So there is nothing else. And that's the time to remember that I and the Father are one, that the kingdom of God is me. That's what brings me back. But sometimes I have to get there. And the Course teaches, we're not asked not that things aren't going to come. We're just asked not to hold on to these things, to be willing to let it go, to recognize that the ego thought system is something that we're making up. And it's something that we're just making up, that we're thinking ourselves separate and forgetting what we truly are. And that's where the peace comes for me.
Lesson 50, as you mentioned, I
No, right
love,
after.
love, love.
Right
I'm
after. No,
sorry?
right after. No, right after lesson 50, the first review.
Oh,
First
right after lesson 50, the first review.
paragraph 4, if
Um,
I'm not mistaken.
oh, that's so funny because I have that paragraph highlighted, Zulma. That's so
Mm-hmm.
interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It says here, what I am skipping the first 2 sentences, what I have highlighted is you will need your learning most
Yes,
in
indeed.
situations that appear to be upsetting
Mm-hmm.
rather than in those that already seem to be calm and quiet.
Mm-hmm.
The purpose of your learning is to enable you to bring the quiet with you. I love this. And to heal distress and turmoil. This is not done by avoiding them and seeking a haven of isolation for yourself. And then I think I'm going to read the fifth paragraph. You will yet learn that peace is part of you and requires only that you be there to embrace any situation in which you are. And finally, you will learn that there is no limit to where you are, so that your peace is everywhere as you are. I love
Mm-hmm.
that. I love
Yes,
that, Zulma. I do have
yes,
that highlighted. That's so
yes.
great that you brought that in
I've brought it up.
because,
I've brought it up before. I need that one. That's a key one for me. That's a key one for me to remember. Wherever I am, that's where the peace is. Wherever I am, that's where God is. Wherever I am, no matter what I see, to remember that God is in everything I see because God is in my mind. That's one of the workbook lessons. I don't know which one, but it's one of the early lessons early
that's
on.
it. That's the analogy too about the hurricane. There's like a calm point, in the middle of a hurricane, isn't there? Sometimes I think about that when everything in our life is in my life is chaotic. It's so important for me to remember that myself, my Christ consciousness is within me, and God goes with me wherever I go. And sometimes we learn the most when there are challenging situations displayed in our life. My sister and I are talking a lot. Again, we went through a period of not talking. Now we're talking a lot. She is going through a very challenging time in her life. She's going through a separation from her husband, um, probably a divorce. And she's been married for over 30 years. So that's a very challenging situation for anyone. She is atheist slash agnostic in belief. However, last night when we were speaking, she said she was giving her situation over to God. And I said, "Oh, you use the G word, huh?" And I thought that was beautiful, because I think sometimes when there are challenging situations in our life, that's when many of us realize that there is a higher power who just loves us totally and unconditionally and completely. And I also think, a lot of times breakdowns lead to breakthroughs. So again, whether she actually separates permanently from her husband or not, I do not know. I do know there are a lot of challenges that life is throwing out at her right now, and I do think she's growing deeper within herself, and I think this has happened to me too. When I've gone through a lot of challenges, it's enabled me to go deeper in myself. And I think just to trust that God is with us all the time, trust to rely upon Spirit totally. That is the most important thing. That is the first characteristic of a teacher of God, to trust that God always has our back, to trust that God needs me as much as I need him, to trust that whenever I can calm down the egoic mindset and just be still, that's where God is. We were also talking last night about the fact that in younger years, I was definitely a workaholic, because I needed the distraction of work, because it was very kind of scary just for me to be still and be with myself. I also live smack in the middle of Manhattan, which I love the distractions that New York City offered to me. I couldn't even go outside the perimeter of New York City without getting very stressed. I was like addicted to that stimulus and the rush and the energy, the chaos. I was addicted to the chaos. But it's just so important to be fully present with ourselves no matter where we are. It's also very important to be fully present with uncomfortable feelings when they arise, and that's how they end up dissipating.
Yes, and that's excellent point. Excellent point. I'm loving what you're saying about your sister, that you get to the place where you realize you start to find your strength. Now, and whatever you call strength, call it God, call it life, call it energy, call it spirit, call it whatever you want, but you recognize your oneness with, because as she's saying, she's turning it over to God. That's fantastic coming from a atheist slash agnostic. Turning it over, but she's recognizing her own strength, that she's, the course says, if you think if you're doing in your own power, you're making a mistake. You're making a mistake. My dog is finding stuff. I'm trying to find out what he's finding. Give me that. Thank you. That if we're in our own strength, we have reason to be depressed. And she's realizing that it's something greater than her, that it's beyond her, that we can't control anything outside of us, that we really can't control anything outside of us. When we try to do that, that's how we create, make problems for ourselves. It's like, I have a hard enough time controlling myself. How in the world am I going to control you? How? How? It's not for me to do. It's not for me to do. But just remembering that the same spirit that moves me is the same spirit that moves everyone else. And it's being able to see that, even if I don't understand it, I may not even like it, but to accept, to let all things be exactly as they are. That acceptance, that's the key. That's the key.
Yeah, I have a plaque right on my wall right here that I'm looking at now. Allow yourself to be right where you are. I have an affirmation that I recite sometimes, and every morning this comes up in my meditation. What if everything is just perfect right here, right now? To accept every circumstance in my life exactly as it is the most empowering state of mind that we can enter into. That is when we can completely and totally trust in God, because as Carl Jung says, what you resist persists. Resistance is of the ego. The ego loves drama. The ego loves chaos. The ego loves stress. The ego loves to wish things were different. But no, the Christ consciousness, God's mind, accepts everything exactly as it is. So, because sometimes, A Course in Miracles also says sometimes what we consider to be the greatest learning experience is not at all. And sometimes things that we fight against is exactly what God wants us to learn from. So it's just so important to accept everything exactly as it is. And again, that did come up for me in my meditation. I'm like, okay, what if my weight is just perfect? What if my marriage is just perfect? What if my job circumstances just is perfect? My house is just perfect. Like, just to accept everything as it is. And A Course in Miracles is also very clear that comparison is of the ego. How many times are we just comparing ourselves to other people? Think, oh, I'm better than that person, but I'm not as good as her. And I wish I had as much money as that person did, but oh, that person, he's just living on the street. I don't want to be like him. Comparison is of the ego, but when we realize our equality, and that this other person that we're looking at, they're part of who I am, and just to refrain from any kind of feeling sorry for anyone, because when we feel sorry for people, that's definitely of the ego. But just recognize that that person is me, that person is a part of me. That is when we're coming from our higher self. I mean, when I really get to the heart of any paragraph in A Course in Miracles, I really feel connected to my true self. And I have been just studying this text for 35 years now, and it's the same. Like when I can live it, I feel the peace, love, joy, and happiness of God. Um, but it is a daily discipline. It's a daily discipline to live the truth that I know.
You said a lot. You said a lot. Um, Ralph Waldo Emerson says that imitation is suicide. So and that whole thing about comparing ourselves to others. If I'm comparing myself to you, if I want to be like Susan, then what happens to Zulma? Where'd she go? I kill her off. I kill her off. And the voice of the course, which is called Jesus, it says that we're not supposed to be even in awe of that, because that's an elder brother, not equal to us, a teacher, our guide, but not to be in awe of it. Awe is only reserved for the all, the all of it, not the pieces of it, not the individual drops of water, but for the whole ocean. If we're going to use that by way of example, the awe is for the whole ocean. I can't be the whole ocean. I can only be a drop, and you're a drop. So for me to be in awe of another drop is to try to make myself less or try to make you more. But no, 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 no. It's the whole ocean, and we're all individual drops in that ocean. You said a lot with that. You really said a lot with that. It's really key to just remember that it's me. Oh, that's me. That's me. It's like putting a mirror in front of myself and everything. Okay, so I see Susan, that's my mirror. I see my doggy, that's my mirror. I see the computer, that's my mirror. It's all my mirror. And I can't imitate an image. Everything, it's images that I see. I think it's workbook lesson 15, that my thoughts are images that I have made. I can't imitate a mirror. Yeah.
Worship is of the ego. Um, I think that what religion did is they chose to disconnect from Jesus Christ by choosing to worship him instead of embodying the principles that he was teaching. And he did not want that. That's what he makes clear in A Course in Miracles. Jesus Christ did not want us to emulate. Is it emulate? Does that mean worship? Jesus Christ did not want us to put him on a pedestal. Jesus Christ did not want us to see him as different than us. Because when we worship someone, we are kind of uh, admitting that we can never attain the state that they are in. So when religion made Jesus Christ into a figure to be worshiped, they were distancing themselves from him. They were separating themselves from Jesus. And that never made sense to me. It never did, because what A Course in Miracles is doing, it's making it clear that Jesus, yes, he is a son of God. Yes, he is pure love, but I have the potential and the ability to be like that also. In fact, that is my destiny, because everyone at some point will be part of the Christ. Everybody at some part will be part of the divine, Jesus himself never claimed that he was the only one who was divine. And biblically, it says, what I have done, you can do also and more. Go thou and do likewise. These are not claims of spiritual exclusivity. What was being demonstrated were manifestations of the divine within each of us, miracles we all could perform, though not without certain disciplines to bring mind, body, and emotions under control. So A Course in Miracles is teaching us the disciplines needed to be like Jesus was. And I do believe that Jesus was probably a very, very happy man, because when you are connected to Christ consciousness, you have to be happy. It's a state filled with joy and with love and with beauty. I mean, people speak about times when they're connected and they're seeing the world through the eyes of Christ, and you see beauty within everyone you come across, even if you don't know them, because you're feeling that beauty within yourself. And if Jesus was connected to this state of consciousness, he had to be a very, very happy person. I mean, it's a very joyful state to reside in. I'm remembering different times in my life when I felt connected to that state of joy, and it never had to do with another person. It never had to do with an amount of money or a job, or it never had to do with a thing. It always had to do with this consciousness within myself that I accessed. Because all we really need, the ego tells us that when we get something from the world, then we will be good enough. But that is a lie. All we really need is we need the love of God, but we have the love of God. So all we really need to do is remember who we really are.
Yeah.
And then we just look at the world through the eyes of joy. And it's a beautiful thing.
You are on fire, Susan. You are on fire. I love it. I love it. I love it. And even biblically, since you went there, it continually it's written that Jesus said, "Not me, but the Father who sent me. Not me, but the Father who sent me." And I come to give you life more, that and more abundantly. It was about that joy. It was about that peace. But not me, but the Father who sent me. When he said that I and the Father are one, he wasn't speaking solely of himself, because when he was asked, teach us how to pray, he didn't say my Father who art in heaven. He said, our Father. And when he was asked, how are you equating yourself with God? He says, isn't it written in the prophets? Didn't the prophets say that ye are gods? But throughout it's written that he referred himself, he always said the Son of Man, the Son of Man, the Son of Man. He never, outside of that moment when he was asked about equating himself with God, never did he refer to himself as Son of God. Always it's written that he referred to himself as Son of Man. But it was always all of us. He says, and who are my brothers and sisters? Those that do the will of the Father. Those are my brothers and sisters. He never, ever once, as you said, didn't attempt to make himself. He never said he was God. Jesus didn't follow Jesus. Jesus followed the Father. Jesus followed the Father. And that's what we're being asked to do. It was that way in the Bible. It's that way in the Course. It's that way in other spiritual teachings. We are asked to follow the Father. Just follow life. Just what is life doing? Life is evolving and involving and evolving and evolving. And we are asked simply to do the same, to let go of yesterday, because there is no yesterday. Life doesn't say, oh, calendar, let me look at the calendar. God doesn't say, let me look at the calendar. None of that. And that's what you're bringing that up so beautifully, so clearly. Thank you. Oh, you are on fire today, my sister. Go.
Oh, thank you, Zulma. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, there's just, what I just opened up to now, something that I brought up before, lesson number 24, which we just did a couple days ago. I do not perceive my own best interests.
Mm-hmm.
So in any situation that we're in, we really need to let go and allow God to lead us, because I don't know my own best interest. Let go and let God. And it says here, in no situation that arises do you realize the outcome that would make you happy. Therefore, you have no guide to appropriate action and no way of judging the result. What you do is determined by your perception of the situation, and that perception is wrong. It is inevitable then that you will not serve your own best interest. Yet they are your only goal in any situation, which is correctly perceived, perceived. Otherwise, you will not recognize what they are. So I guess it's just really important to pray, because I don't know what's best for me. There's no reason for me to try to control the outcome. Control is of the ego, surrender. I truly believe surrender is of God. When I can surrender my will with a small w to his will with a capital W, he will guide me. And he's always talking to me throughout the day. God's voice is always talking to me. But it is important for me to calm my mind, be still, and know that I am God. The only way we can hear God's voice is by stilling our mind. The only way we can hear God's voice is by releasing our anxiety, because the anxiety, that's like friction, that's like static. We can't hear what God is telling us when we have a lot of anxiety and stress and critical thoughts. We just can't hear God. But when we can release the ego, when we can release the fear, we can hear what God is telling us. That's why it's important just to still our mind as often as possible, because God is always talking to us. The Holy Spirit is always guiding us. And when we can let his voice through, we can just feel the peace, love, joy, and happiness of our true self.
Yes, the trust. We're back to what you said about the trust. But back to that, because if I'm stressing about this thing and that thing, I'm out there. I'm out there. I'm not in here. I'm not in here where God resides. I'm not being in the kingdom. I'm not allowing myself to trust, to rely on spirit totally, and knowing that it all comes to pass. 727 times in the Bible, it says it came to pass. 727 times it came to pass. So all the stuff that we stress about, it's all temporary. It's all temporary. It's all temporary, but we're choosing to it's like the movies, like grabbing a piece of the movie and holding on to that piece of the movie. The rest of the movie is just going on by, and we're holding on to it and not even realizing that what we've held on to is just a hologram. It's nothing. It's not even there, because it actually came and it continued to go. So that's where the trust comes in, realizing that no matter what the situation is, no matter what, Dr. Ernest Holmes says, turn away from the condition. Look only at what you want. Turn away from the condition, because conditions come, conditions go, situations come, experiences come, they go. And all that is part of this physical manifestation. But when we choose to go in and realize that that is where the peace resides, that is where the truth resides, that is where that joy resides, that surrendering to joy as you're talking about, that's when we are, as you say, being still and knowing that God is God, and that I am that. I am God. God is what I am. The name of God is my inheritance. Workbook lesson 184 tells us the name of God is my inheritance. Nowhere in the course you say the name of God and gives you an actual name. You find out that is what you are. Dr. Ruth Miller, she says, I think she's a doctor anyway. She says in her book, Unveiling Your Hidden Power, that I am my own understanding of God. Wow. Wow. Back to you.
Yeah, I remember there was this analogy that Marianne Williamson gave years and years ago. I used to listen to her constantly on cassette tape when she was speaking, and they made cassette tapes, and I loved just so many of her analogies. And she brought the basketball game, and she said, if you're a basketball player and you make a shoot and you don't make it in the hoop, and then you start dwelling on the mistake you made, you miss out on the next 5 shots that are available to you. And that always impacted me so much, because if I make a mistake and then I focus on the mistake, I I just miss out on the next opportunity and the next opportunity and the next opportunity. So there's no reason to dwell on past mistakes, none at all, because opportunities are always presenting themselves to us. We always have another shot of throwing the basketball in the hoop at each and every moment. So it's just so important to remember that. Lesson 184, the name of God is my inheritance. um I think if we could really get to the core of any one lesson in this book and really digest it fully, we would remember the truth of who we are. It says here, you live by symbols. You have made up names for everything you see. Each one becomes a separate entity identified by its own name. By this, you carve it out of unity. By this, you designate its special attributes and set it off from other things by emphasizing space surrounding it. This space you lay between all things to which you give a different name, all happenings in terms of place and time, all bodies which are greeted by a name. So that was just the first paragraph. We live by symbols. But the truth of who we are is so much beyond the symbols we see. The truth of who we are is just love. It's just pure, all-encompassing love, which is what I said to my sister last night when she used the G word, the God word. I said to her, "You use the G word." And she immediately said to me, "Well, I don't see him as a person the way, a lot of other people do. I don't see him as a person, sitting on the throne in the sky." And I said, "Oh, I don't either. God is not a body. God is just an energy of pure, all encompassing, unconditional love. And so are all of us. A Course in Miracles is very clear that we are not our bodies. I am not my body. I am free, for I am as God created me." And when I go into my meditation and I really feel the truth of who we are, I leave my body. I just feel that unconditional love, the essence of pure beingness. And that's what brings just total peace to my mind, just to really get out of my body and remember all the love that I have access to at each and every moment. It's hard to imagine it in a way because we're so used to living in bodies. That's how we navigate our way in this world. But the body is temporary. And A Course in Miracles is very clear that nothing that is temporary is of God. It makes me think of another funny thing. My dad passed away 3 years ago, and I think his spirit is watching over me now from a higher place. I really do. But I remember, 3 times at the end of his life, I said, "Now, Dad, where do you want to be buried after you die?" And 3 times he gave me the same answer. "I don't care. I'll be dead." So then I wait a few months. "Are you sure you don't want me to put your, because my mom is buried in Norway. I didn't know if he wanted to be buried next to his wife. There's different places that you can bury a body." Each time his answer was, "I don't care. I'll be dead." And I'm thinking, what a smart answer that is. Why do we even really care where our body is buried? Because the body is not who we are. We are the spirit. We are spiritual beings, you living in these body forms to learn lessons before we go back home.
Yes, yes. It's like my last car, her name was Sapphire, and this car's name is Scarlet. That'll tell you about the colors, right? Name is Scarlet, but I'm not my car. I'm not Sapphire, and I'm not Scarlet either. And nothing survives its purpose. The Course teaches us nothing survives its purpose. That this vehicle, this thing, it's my communication device. It's the vehicle. It's the exterior that's giving me an opportunity. It's through this thing that I'm communicating, that I get to recognize and recognize the you in me and the me in you, beyond what we see in the physical mirror. And that's really it. That's really it. So yeah, and that's why I've chosen cremation for that reason. At a funeral, I heard a funeral director refer to the body as the remains, and that was back in 1985. I have since attached myself to that term. It's the remains. It's not. It's like my car from where they where the insurance company took it. It was no longer mine, and I took the contents of it out. But that shell is gone. It's nothing survives its purpose. Nothing. And you talk about, as far as your dad, my mom, whatever. We in our minds. Yes, I continue to talk to my mother. Yes, I continue to talk to in the form that I remember them. I continue to talk, because that can't die. The essence never dies. It is one with me. It is one with me, and the communication is actually stronger now than it was, because I don't have to pick up the phone. I don't have to wait till I get home. I don't have to anything. It's right there all the time, and I can say what I'm feeling that's great, what I'm feeling that's not, and I'm glad to know that answers come. It's close to your end time, so I'll share a story with you offline when we're done, or I'll text you, however. But yeah, I got one.
You talked about the names of your car, the names of your last car and your car now. That's so funny, because just an hour ago, right before the talk, my husband is getting a new car, so he's giving me his old car. And he named his old car Black Dragon. And now that I'm getting the Black Dragon, I've changed his name to Sophia. So the Black Dragon is becoming Sophia. And then before, he said he was using his old car to do an errand, I said, now make sure to remember, the Black Dragon is no longer the Black Dragon. The Black Dragon is now Sophia. So, because Sophia is my favorite name, Sophia was my mother's middle name, and the translation of Sophia in Hebrew is wisdom of God. So, we are naming the Black Dragon Sophia. And it's interesting how we give names to our cars. So, but I do think that everything has like an energetic frequency, and sometimes when our energetic frequency changes, we will find that surrounding uh, surrounding material things that we own might change as well. I read that from, I think it was one of these spiritual teachers, that sometimes when our energetic frequencies, the material belongings around us tend to change. But yeah, it's all good, and I know our time is just about up. And any final thoughts, Zulma?
Oh, thank you for having me. As I said, you are on fire today. I can't wait to go back and listen to this again. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Zulma. Thank you so much. And as the Course in Miracles says in the introduction, nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. The only thing that's real is the love. And it's just so important to remember that. So thank you. Thank you. I love you.
Love
And
you.
oh, there's your beautiful dog.
Lovable, lovable. Lovable, not now. He's been
And I will,
playful. Yes.
very beautiful. And I will now return the microphone to Lynn.
Thanks, you guys both so much. Wonderful, wonderful sharing. And yeah, it's worth it going back and looking on the YouTube.